Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Speaking of Jesus Christ, let's talk about Scream 3.
Okay.
I'm going to start off by saying, to me, what's the obvious is that Kevin Williamson wrote Scream 1 and Scream 2.
Yes.
And he's even said, and to me, not like in a Tarantino-esque kind of way, but like there is something that his dialogue kind of pops and fizzles, you know? And he's even said in some interview, I remember reading a long time ago, probably in Entertainment Weekly in the 90s. I don't know if he was talking about, I think he was either talking about Scream or Dawson's Creek, but he said, like, I don't write natural dialogue. I write, the way I write is when you have a conversation with someone and someone like insults you and then later, after the conversation is over, you think of the perfect thing to say and you're like, oh, that's how I write everything.
I love that he said that, because that's actually, we brought up
that's how the first 1, 2, and 4 are.
And particularly the first one,
and it's missing from 3.
There are people who almost misspeak throughout the first one, and I know we're talking about 3, but I don't have any examples in 3. But throughout the first one, where they say things that are just a little off, that sound like something somebody would say, almost like an error in speech, like, but in natural speech, but you just said it, so, you know, just keep moving. Like, I mean, and just, or just like clunky dialogue that doesn't feel written, but it feels, it's just odd. Like when the first time Sid has Billy on top of her, she calls him a stud bucket. I'm like, okay. And then when she says it's like deja vu all over again, I'm like deja vu? I mean, somebody said deja vu all over again around me, I would be like, you mean like deja vu? And they're like, shut up. I mean, it's these are like honest mistakes people would make, things they would say, but people usually, when they're writing, don't allow for speech like that, because they're like, well, that's not right. Somebody better correct that or change it, because it's going to stand out and people are going to be like, but that's not the way it is.
It's funny that's how you read it, because I've read both of those lines completely differently.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. When she says, okay, stud bucket, like, again, he came over talking about how we used to fool around a lot and now we don't. And so now she's inviting him and she's like, okay, stud bucket, like, you get your hand on my leg, like, all right.
It's just
like,
such a weird word for Sydney to use for me.
I didn't even question it. I thought you were talking about attention. You're just saying it's a weird word. Yeah, I've heard stud bucket.
He says
before.
it, and I'm just
it's
like,
not stud muffin.
That's a peculiar word.
But also,
I just remember the word stud. Like, it doesn't feel like a Sydney word, but whatever.
No, but yeah, but she's not saying it in truth. It's a Sydney expression because she's, it's jokingly.
It just stands out to me, but not in a way
deja vu all
where,
over again. That was a social humor thing. That was a thing that we said to be funny. It's like deja vu all over again. So
it only became a thing to say to be funny for me after the movie.
No. See, I heard it socially before the movie.
Oh,
and
really?
That's what made me relate to her as a teenager, because I already heard that.
All right.
And
I guess I was too old by the time I got to the movie.
But even if not, I thought she was still using it as like a witticism. And she's playing it
I
straight.
Get that. I get that, but at the same time, like, I know my response in a conversation would be to be a dickhead and to correct her. But I mean, and then later,
Tatum's not you, but yeah.
No, of course not. But I mean, and Tatum has a bunch. But then like another one that stood out to me is just like Gail and Dewey, when she talks about how she's like supposed to be most popular with males 11 to 24, and the last line in the scene, she's like, so you do watch the show? He's like, I'm 25. I was 24 a whole year, and I know what it means.
Yes.
But it makes me kind of shake my head and go, what an odd way to. So you've been watching her for a year. Like, I get the exchange. Yes. I know what they're doing. I'm just like, but when you take it out and pick it apart, which of course I've done because I've watched this movie so many times, but even the first time, the record skipped me a little bit. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? So I'm just confirming Kevin Williamson's assessment of his own his own style of writing dialogue, which is not there. This just feels like, ooh, let's keep it peppy. Let's keep it like, I don't know.
But not just even the dialogue, but I mean, just the whole self-aware meta structure of it all. the wit behind not just the dialogue, but the intent of the movie. As far as I know Aaron Kruger had written Arlington Road before this, but this is my first Aaron Kruger, and I remember I'll never forget that name because I just went going, well, that's not Kevin Williamson. What's going on? What is this? And I mean, I'm not gonna totally talk trash, but I mean, the track record. This isn't like a blip, an otherwise spotless record, you know.
Oh dear.
Guy wrote Transformers 2 and 3 and 4.
Oh dear.
Wrote Tim Burton's Dumbo.
Which I still have yet to see.
Blood and Chocolate. I mean, yeah.
Enough said.
Yeah. So right off the bat, here's the thing that kills me about. Okay, supposedly, and I say supposedly only because I know IMDb trivia can be edited, but apparently, according to IMDb trivia, Kevin Williamson wrote an outline for the movie that then Aaron Kruger threw away and wrote from scratch.
Oh boy.
And that Wes Craven, even though Aaron Kruger's credited with the script, Wes Craven was like, these don't read like the characters. And then Wes Craven did like an uncredited pass on it. And I know Wes Craven has written plenty. But apparently like Wes Craven rewrote the scene so that the fucking characters sound like the characters. And I believe it. My biggest number one complaint about Scream 3 is that Scream 1 and 2, while they can be taken seriously, like again, I felt bad for Stewie and Randy, and I'm with Sydney, but there is a level of satire. We are poking fun at the horror genre. It's a love letter, but we are deconstructing things, and we are playing with tropes. We're not taking it totally seriously. This is kind of a humorous, meta postmodern comedic approach to it.
It's like setting the stage for Scary Movie.
And then Scream 3 is just like a bad horror movie. It's the kind of movie that Scream 1 and 2 are satirizing. And I think that's a massive misstep. I think it also takes, I hate when sequels do this, and this movie does it, where they take the lore too seriously and they get up their own butt about the mythology of stuff. And this movie totally gets up its own ass about fucking Sydney's mom and blah, blah, blah. And it is at the same time, takes itself too seriously and is also really fucking silly in a way that Scream 1 and 2 aren't silly. So it's extra frustrating that it's too fucking serious and too goddamn silly. And I think it's just kind of a mess.
Okay. It's interesting because for you to speak about Scream 2 so much being a part of Sydney for you, like Sydney centric and giving you the Sydney you want. That's how I feel about this one, because I don't attach to much else in the movie. I mean, well, I do appreciate it's not exactly on point tonally, but I do appreciate the presence of Parker Posey and what she does with the twin Gale Weathers. I think it's interesting and entertaining enough that I don't get bored, and she's a lot less empty than, she doesn't feel like a fully formed living breathing character, but doesn't feel as empty and as kind of like words as empty and as, I guess, like poorly written, I can't think of a better way to put it, as a lot of the other new characters that we're introduced to. Like, I could have gotten more from the new characters we were introduced to in Scream 2. But the characters that I was reintroduced to, I told you how excited I was about their reintroduction. So it was fine. They served a purpose, and we got the movie. With 3, I don't have a lot to glom onto. So Parker Posey, I'm just kind of like, I'll take it. Just give it good, because we got a lot of people playing roles that are so inconsequential, and it's not like in the kind of like oddly strategically planted, like we need some red herrings, so if we put some people you might recognize in the background, or some people who are just very, very capable actors in the background, maybe you'll wonder, like, who is the killer. In this, like, we get Patrick Warburton being horrible to who he thinks is Dewey over the phone right before he gets it, talking
Yeah,
about
talks about his
how,
dead sister.
about his dead sister and everything like that.
I don't
Out of
blame the killer
nowhere.
for killing him at that point.
Like, we already know he doesn't like him and he's annoyed by him because he's the real muscle and Dewey is just like the whatever that lives in the Winnebago
The
outside. But
Hollywood
it's just,
hanger on.
but I'm like, what's the point of that? And I Jenny McCarthy's kill is not scary at all. That's one case where you were talking about the score, and I feel like the score is working so hard to convince us that what we're watching is scary, and it's not. There's no suspense. I don't know her.
It's even more produced and grander, and and doesn't match what I'm looking at on screen.
Also, this is the real case where, kind of like what bugged me about the climax in 2 about the killer kind of depending on chance for Sydney to be in an empty campus at exactly the moment to hear the thing and be the only person to go in and investigate and whatever, and not call the cops first. This one, the way they write Roman, first of all, he's the only killer, doing it completely alone, so he can teleport and he can and also he can anticipate, because that the thing that bothered me also, there were a lot of things that bothered me about the Jenny McCarthy kill, but I think the thing that got me the most was this is all relying heavily on chance, because he had to know she was going to be about to leave the building, stop, get one of the most pedestrian shots of her like lunging forward, see a shadow,
like you're depending on a security
it's a
guard.
killer,
yeah,
and run away when it really is a security guard, but run from it, hide in exactly the right room where all of the scream, the ghost face masks and everything, so he can be there. And this isn't the first time that's happened either. Like, even in the first Scream, the only kind of scare with Ghostface in the bathroom, a lot happens in that bathroom in the first movie before the feet lower and before Ghostface chases her out of her, her school bathroom, and then I guess just stays there. But that's like one moment. This is like a whole
that was referred
kill.
to as a kid doing a prank. Like, that's
Was
not
that
actually
what that
a
one
Ghostface.
was?
Yeah, because when her and Tatum are leaving the school, they're referring to, like, it was some fucking kid in a mask who's having fun. We already established the guy in the hallway.
I thought that's who they were talking about.
Because
okay.
if it was a real killer, like, that scene just ends. She runs out and then it's over, and that makes no sense. Yeah,
that's what I thought happened. But okay, I'll have to watch it again now.
It's
that's how layered the first one is. That's how many times you have to watch. Like, so the third one, it's not layered.
Yes.
Nobody did anywhere. I'm like, Wes Craven, what happened? And
that sort of thing didn't happen when Kevin Williamson was writing it.
Right, but this is the thing. But I mean, but even when there were like pockets of like, well, that doesn't really, but I didn't care because there was so much other stuff going on. But this one, the only time I really truly feel connected to what's happening is when Sydney's on screen. And I love everything about the way we meet her, the fact that she's helping women in crisis, even though she's completely cut off from the world and isolated and living behind a gate. This is another thing that I didn't quite understand. She has a gate that you could easily hop over, but it's got a security code that you can punch into it. I'm like, well, what's really the point of that?
And the security code is on the gate and not in the deeper into the property.
Like, yeah, but then she has one inside her house also. So I'm like, oh, okay, so she's like doubling down on it. Okay, I get what you're going for. And this is where, I start doing the work.
It's the visual
the
language
movie.
of cinema that tells you, but when you think beyond the language,
I'm just kind of like, okay, so she's under lock and key. Got it. And then, but then the fact that she's, reaching out and that she is kind of in contact with her father, who is worrying about her. He bought her all these squashes. And but also just like, I get a sense from her this time, she's no longer striving for normalcy. She's just trying to make some sense out of it. She's not quite as out of the woods as she was at the top of 2 from the first movie. In this movie, she's still sorting through it. She's still having nightmares. And we don't know how long it may be before she can trust people again. But at the same time, I don't worry about her in this movie. And I think it's in a great way, because I feel like when she finally gets the phone call and she knows she has to go out, I love that she's wearing the Greek letters around her neck. I love that when she sees Gail and Dewey, they kind of know what to expect from her. And that she's breaking things down. She's even suspecting Patrick Dempsey while they're discussing movies. Here he is a movie buff. He's a suspect. Right. Could be a red herring. And it even pays off, the red herring, like a little bit later. Everything connected to Sydney, I like. That's the only time the movie happens for me. Whenever it's not about her, again, like even the way her scare is structured when she's on the soundstage and she's seeing everything happen again. So the killer, Roman knew she was going to be on the soundstage at that moment, knew where she was going to go, knew the soundstage was going to be abandoned, but still for some reason chocked with food from Crafty when everything got canceled. It either needs to be a ghost town or it needs to be like, oh, well, they just wrapped and there's a set that's prepped for the murder scene and he knew she was going to go in there and see it. I mean, how did he, I don't.
And then once he's still in he's in the Ghostface costume, but then he knows, well, now she's going to leave, so let me go climb under the tarp.
Right.
Change the setting to be the mom voice.
Yeah.
How the fuck did he get the mom's voice?
And then later, like even in the climax, like I have a problem with the whole climax with everybody in the house, even what gets Sydney there. The fact that I mean, I like that she's just sticking around waiting for something to happen. But then when she gets the call from him, the killer has been killing people left and right, but saves Gail and Dewey to, I guess, scream for help in the background, so it'll entice her over. Yet we've planted that this killer has all their voices, could easily be like, here, listen to this. Sydney, don't hurt her. You know, I mean, could be whoever wants. I could just kill them off and you know, so great. It's just gonna be me and Sydney. She's not gonna have her Scoobies, and I'm not rooting for it to happen, but if I'm the killer and I'm planning as much as Roman seemed to, what the question is, why wouldn't he have just killed them? He killed everybody else. The only reason he didn't kill them is because Gail and Dewey have to live, and that's where I feel like I'm watching something that's written. This is the thing. Even what gets Sydney in that screening room where he finally reveals with the thing, it's a giant house. How does he know she's going to hide in that room and then stay in that room?
Nobody else could find.
That's showing movies of her mother with loops of her mother's voice, which is probably just him, but how did he get the voice? And just, I was so pretty and all that bullshit. Comes out ready for her, covered in the same sheet that was on the set, like speckled in blood, and I'm just like, oh dear God. But then once he reveals who he is, this is where we get to the strength for me, the core strength. And we've had this discussion too, you and I, before, about this climax, because I feel incredibly connected to it. And I don't know if it's just because I have a sister, I'm a brother, and there's something about, we're not like Sydney and Roman. There's something about this weird sibling rivalry angle that they play about about her getting everything that should have been his, that I buy, that I think works really, really well. It's worked in other movies, and I think it works incredibly in this one. Also, the fact I like that Scott Foley, who I hadn't seen Felicity before then, so I hadn't really been exposed to Scott Foley's work. I didn't know what kind of an actor he was. I spent the whole movie watching Roman, the film director, I thought, a bad actor. I thought, oh my God, he's so white bread. I don't even know why this character's here, and he's not doing a good job. Like, I mean, they wrote him a joke. Like, you think this wasn't a message with his broken, like, I mean, I guess it's funny on paper, but he's kind of playing the comedy. Like, I started criticizing his performance as the movie's going on, but then once he finally reveals who he is, I don't criticize his performance anymore. And I'm like, this is what I got in the first movie and what I wanted in the second movie from Mickey, was me being outside of the movie going like, well, I don't know if I agree with that, thing, or that's a weird way to put it. And then when I see it, I'm just like, oh, because he's not an actor. He's just a bad actor. He is a bad actor. Roman is. But now I believe everything he's saying. I believe his motives. I don't believe how he executed it all. But now that Sydney is finally face to face with her assailant or whatever, her oppressor. And I love what she screams back at him. The fact that she's coming from maturity, from adulthood, from a place of, oh my God, I've heard all of this before. Do you know why you kill people, Roman? It's not because of anybody else. It's because you choose to. That is why. I mean, and this is probably what she has wanted to scream. She's probably thought about this over and over again after both movies. Everything I would scream at these people if I only got more time to just kind of like lay into them. And the fact that there's this weird, primal sibling thing that they both click into with the fuck you, and they just charge at each other.
I'm glad you mentioned that part, because it's very easy just to write fuck you on a script, but they both infuse. I'm always fascinated when dialogue can be rote and people elevate it. And I lift up in my seat when it's like, fuck you, and then fight.
Yeah.
It's from both of them, it's pure. And it's great.
And the fact that it's preceded by, why don't you take some fucking responsibility, feels very weird, elementally kind of brother and sister that I like. And then, just so I can close the book on this, because I've been talking a long time, I know, I'm sorry, but this is what I really respond to this. And I do get moved by this, 2 tears every time I watch it. It's after all of the kill and everything like that, which is fine. And I like the fact that they think alike and, they both think to call each other, but she gets there first, stabs him. Once they discover who he is and everything, and he's laying there, she's looking at him. She's heard his story. She's even argued with him, kind of like arguing why it's not a good enough story for him to have done everything that she does. And she still finds room inside of herself. This doesn't often happen with final girls. She still finds room in herself to feel empathy for him and to clutch his hand and be there with him as he dies, just because he must, it's like there's this inner monologue going on inside her head, like he must have spent his entire life believing that he wasn't worthy of being loved, and like nobody saw him, nobody cared. I'm here, and I'm just gonna, you fucked everything up, but you know what? You're still my brother. So I'm still gonna hold. I'm gonna hold your hand. I'm gonna make you know the last thing that you experience in this world is gonna be you're not alone. And he feels it too. I can see him taking an odd, bizarre comfort, this weird comfort they both find in each other, because you can almost feel like the loss of like what they could have been too. And it's the score too, working with what they're doing, just this echo, this oh, and it's why the film is worth owning and worth watching for me. So there you go.
The reason I own Scream 3 on DVD and also on Blu-ray is because it came in the box set. It came in the box set. No, but also I would own it because there's certain things that I'm a completist about.
Yeah.
And I care enough about Galen, Dewey, and Sydney to want to own this despite my problems with it.
Sure.
First of all, Jay and Silent Bob are in it. It doesn't fit the tone of this franchise at all. So many of the jokes and the humor of this are just so broad and not in line with Scream. The Carrie Fisher cameo.
I was just gonna say.
I love Carrie Fisher. I don't like that I live in a world where I go, this is stupid. But the Carrie Fisher scene is fucking stupid. And I know it's meant to be, when and also they do the thing where it's like, are you so? No, I get that a lot. You look just, and she goes, yeah. And then they take it one step further, which I don't appreciate, which is, I was supposed to be in Star Wars. I auditioned for this idea. But you know who gets the part? The one who sleeps with George Lucas. And it's meant to make me go, oh, she's having fun. And she made George Lucas. But instead I just go, get it? It's supposed to make you go, oh. It doesn't make me go, oh. It's supposed to roll my fucking eyes. I'm
happier when it's just Carrie Fisher acting, like the next point, like just kind of like going through the files and showing them stuff. That's when I'm like, that should have been it. That should have just been all she did.
Now, I am a massive Kevin Smith fanboy to the nth degree.
Mm-hmm.
And even though isolated, it's funny to see Jay be like, yo, fucking, that's Connie fucking Chung. How's it going or whatever.
God.
In this movie, it just, so much of the humor just doesn't fucking belong.
The only reason
That's
I can appreciate that cameo is because I know the backstory that Jay
right.
was so pumped behind the scenes.
We get a t-shirt and they give us like $20 for food.
We should be in all these movies.
You've been in movies. Yeah.
And it's just like, we do our own movies. We get paid a lot more. And but he's like, a t-shirt and a sandwich. Sign me up. That's the only reason I can appreciate that cameo.
All right. So you went off for a while about the things that get you through it. Let me just go off for a bit on the things that don't get me through it.
Please do.
First of all, again, from the very beginning, Scream 1, classic, but Scream 1 and 2 both open with clever, interesting scenes that have a wit to them, that they have something a little bit off-center that brings something fresh. And then this, and also, the first one opened with like a Drew Barrymore, and then the next, Jada Pinkett Smith was already a name. So like, ooh, Jada Pinkett Smith is going to be in the opening scene. And I didn't know who's going to be in the third one. And then I'm like, oh, it's Leah Schreiber. Is his girlfriend going to be someone fit? Who's his girlfriend? I don't know who she is. Who? What? And then also, it takes it again. It's not. I mean, someone getting killed is not fun, but it's so connected to like the killer's motives and where's Sydney. Like it's so right off the bat takes itself too seriously. It's too up its own ass about its fucking story and mythology. And then just to have him on the phone and then just driving home, his girlfriend's at home. I never understood that shot where the killer's on the phone with Cotton, and then we cut to the killer's POV, going like, "Hey, sounds like you're," and you see the door open. Oh, the girlfriend's taking a shower. Let's take a closer look. And I'm like, the killer's in the bathroom, and he's on the phone.
Yeah.
Talking out loud while he's in the bathroom. How does she not turn around? 2 minutes into this movie and I already am fucking confused and upset. But yeah, Cotton gets, well, first of all, it's one of the few, I'll probably sprinkle in little bits I like. One of the little bits I like is, first of all, I hate the fucking voice box where everyone's program voices. I hate it to no fucking end. But I do like that when she thinks it's Cotton playing around.
Oh.
And he at one point his voice goes up and yells.
Yeah.
I like that yell a lot. So I buy it when he comes home and she thinks he's been playing around. She's swinging it. It's the only part I like is the confusion. But the action in Scream 1 opening, very interesting. The action in Scream 2 is a very interesting set piece, what with the crowd, with the Scream masks. But this is just, he comes home, they have a tussle in an office. There's a simple game. You had to tell me where Sydney is. Now you lose. Stab. I remember I saw that opening night with a friend of mine who's not even really into horror, but he knew, like he liked Scream 2 and he was looking forward. And I remember he turned to me right when the stat happens, the title happens. He goes, "That was the opening?" And I went, "Yeah." It's such a flaccid way to open the movie. In fact, that's
also kind of gross that Cotton, one of the first things she says when she thinks he's teasing her before the kill even attempt, she's just kind of like, "Come on, Cotton, I don't like your stab games." You're what now?
Yeah.
You sociopath? Like, if you were accused of murder and then cleared and then had to work
why are you doing this
to clear yourself, why would you date a woman and then tease her about being the killer of the movies that were based on the woman who was killed, who you were having an affair? I mean, it's so fucked. It makes me just think you're fucked.
Remember when O.J. Simpson wrote the book, If I Did It? And you're like, dude, like, this is, my problem with that also is when he hears, when the caller is like using a girl voice. Even though he's not blatantly like, I'm going to cheat on my girlfriend now. And he's not even being that flirty, but he is responding to it. Between his kind of like interested response, like, hey, let me take this other call. So you're a fan of the show, huh? I'm like, this isn't the Cotton that I fucking know.
No.
Because at least in Scream 2, that scene when they're in the library, I believe his intentions for wanting this interview. And even when he kind of maybe goes a step too far, he grabs her by the shoulder and he's like trying to play her on. But I also believe as the red herring. But by the end of the movie, like I get he's not a perfect guy, you know, as far as like the Diane Sawyer interview and stuff. But like I never believed he put on fucking doing murder games with his girlfriend. I agree with you. That whole fucking opening scene. I loathe the voice box. So Scream came out end of '96, felt like a '97 movie. Scream 2 came out the end of '97, felt like a '98 movie. This came out at the beginning of 2000, so it was like a solid 2 years. In fact, I think it was supposed to come out in '99 and got pushed back to the beginning of 2000. In 2000, like it's science fiction bullshit. Like that technology didn't exist. I would even argue, I don't think in 2020 that technology exists, at least in a handheld device for a civilian like you or me to have. It all of a sudden I just felt like, am I watching a fucking science fiction movie? What is this?
And for the first time,
what sorcery is this?
Yeah, and for the first time in the franchise, it entered my mind, and it happened again this time. I had forgotten I even thought this, and I was like, oh yeah. Visibly, you see Stu and Billy speak into it in the climax of 1, and you can hear both voices. And yet, whenever they're on the phone, whenever they do it, you only hear the one voice. I never connect the two and think like, oh, that's implausible. In 3, I do it the whole movie and just go, well, how are you? If you were speaking on the, I literally think, if you were speaking on the phone trying to sound like a familiar voice, they're also going to hear your voice. So it's going to sound wonky. At least with the other one, it's not a familiar voice. It's kind of like a just, and also
interesting
you're
you bring
talking
that up.
Low. Yeah.
Interesting you bring that up, because I was justified that because the mic of the phone is so close to the box, like that's what we're hearing when we're cutting to the other person listening. But the fact that we're now in an ambient room, that's how we kind of explain to the audience. That didn't really, that little thing that you're talking about didn't bother me in this one so much as just like, oh, he has all of our voices. Yeah. How does he have Dewey and like Gail's voices?
Well, Gail, he could have just got it off the TV, I guess.
Right. I understand you can get it from TV interviews, but like, how is it stored in a box? That we're not talking about quotes. We're talking about their voices. But then on top of that, how does he have Maureen Prescott's voice? My only justification is from those like 3 B movies she did. But like, Sydney has a dream. First of all, this movie would be so much better if she didn't have that dream. Although I will admit, that dream scene does creep me out because because the makeup on her and the look in her eyes, she shows up for a day and just really creeps me out. And then the audio, like the way the sound is mixed. But Sydney has a dream about her mom.
Yeah.
Then that doesn't count. That's just a dream. It's a thing in the movie so that when she gets the phone calls, we can connect that there's still stuff with Maureen happening. But in the context of the story, that doesn't happen. That's just a dream. So now Sydney gets a phone call from her mom. And that's the first thing that matters is like, wait, what? He has her mom's voice and he knows to fuck with her about her mom? He doesn't know she's having dreams. What the fuck is this shit? Enough to be like, oh, when you're on set, I'm going to use your mom's voice and come up in the police bag.
They rely on chance a lot in this movie.
Yeah, that voice change sucks. I'll tell you something that I like. Here's a nice thing I like. And I'm sorry that it's dependent. If we're being all woke and this totally fails the Bechdel test, I'm sorry. But when Sydney is on the set and she's being chased and she yells out, Dewey! Like, we've built enough of a friendship and a reliance and a dependency that when she knows that he's like, she's visiting LA and he's there, like, yeah, call for Dewey, like, but also like I need Dewey, and like, I she arrives to LA, she goes to the police station, it's the first person she sees, and
Hmm.
again, when it comes to her performance, because I'll agree with you, she's great in this,
Yeah.
but I totally 100% buy the desperation and the need when she screams through
Yeah.
through the whole fucking soundstage for fucking Dewey to show up. It
Right.
breaks my heart. Let me just say that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I don't. I'm not. I love Parker Posey. Love Parker Posey. I loved her ever since the House of. Actually, fuck that. I've loved her ever since Party Girl,
Or a
House
girl.
of Yes. Fucking
Mm.
love her. So really, it's impressive that for someone I love so much, for me to just fucking do not like the character and what they're doing with her. But it is. I don't know what I'd like to see what movie she's in, because it's not the same movie as everyone else. It is on a different level. I mean, it's one thing for like there's a certain degree of like some of the God, I can't remember his name, but the guy from Waiting for Guffman who's playing Dewey in the movie,
Matt Kiesler.
Matt Kiesler. All these other kind of characters we're introduced to, like Emily Mortimer. Emily, they're all a little not 100% grounded in reality.
Yeah.
But Parker Posey is a fucking cartoon character. She is not on the same frequency as anyone in this movie. I mean, just her posture, her cartoony, like, or her bugging of the eyeballs, and just like, and then your daughter, and then gonna kill me, and she's gonna kill you, and she's gonna kill you. Just what the fuck is this performance?
You're obsessed with her daughter.
Yeah.
I love
And then your
it.
daughter is.
And doesn't she say like easy something? She makes some Gail makes some kind of reference to her and like backs her up, like easy 60 minutes or something like that. I don't remember what
You know,
it
it's funny
was.
because the third act of the movie feels like a Scooby Doo, and but also when they're going down to the archives and she's like leaning out behind her and she, like
I'm so
not
thirsty for something entertaining to happen that I'm on board with it. And because it's also kind of meta to watch two Gales. I love the fact that I know who she is before she declares who it is, just based on the color of her suit and the highlights in her hair. But
not entertaining for me.
I do agree with you. But the thing is, like, I don't feel like any of the other people are in a Scream movie either. So I feel like at least she's doing something, and that's not a criticism of the actors. That's a criticism of like what they're given to do. These are good actors. Matt Kiesler has been really, really good in other projects, and he's fine in this, but he doesn't do anything. And Emily Mortimer, oh my God, like I love watching her work. But in this movie, it's almost like there's a character, kind of like she made a lot of
Yeah.
decisions and did her work. But I remember she used to irritate the shit out of my sister when she would cry outside the house after it explodes. Which
Uh-huh.
I gotta talk about this too, because
You
that's
want to
another
talk about circumstance?
one of those just by chance things. Okay, how did you know you turned on the gas and you're sending faxes, you cut out the power? So surely the only thing that's going to happen is people are reading the faxes in the dark house. It's not that they're going to go
Outside and read them.
and use somebody. Well, phones didn't have light on them, but go
No.
outside and try to maybe by the light of the moon or by like a street light, or just get away from the house and go to
People
a car.
have
You got lights with cars.
flashlights in their house.
Exactly. But he goes over, and also this is the thing: the killer knows, Roman knows that Matt Kiesler, fake Dewey, is going to stumble. I thought they were all in the same room, but no, he goes a whole other room over,
Yeah, he goes through the
finds
door.
a lighter in the kitchen where the gas is, lights it, and what the fuck? Like, that was the most far-fetched kill I'd seen in a while. And then the fact that, like, afterwards, everybody kind of just,
Yeah.
identified, except for Emily Mortimer, who's going,
Yeah. And how did you get all the way over there? And then
is everybody okay? And then later, when it's revealed that she slept with Milton to get the role, but she's also really, really sweet. Because again, I don't like her, and I don't like the way she's written, and I'm sorry for Emily Mortimer that she did the best she could to play something.
Because she's great in so many other things.
Yes, she is. But then she gets that scene with Sydney. This is another thing where Sydney is my home base. When with the red herring, but you see Sydney listening to her, and I glom onto that. I'm just kind of like, oh my God, Sydney's like still there for her and really listening to her, like, oh my God, she's a young actress. She's trying so hard in Hollywood. She wanted to, oh, that's really sweet. You wanted to make me proud. I'm sure I would have been. I'm even gonna run after you when you drop your hairbrush and then unnecessarily roam about a set that is destined for, I guess it's destined for me. But the quotes, destined for me to roam about. God.
I don't know when it was abandoned, but I don't know if it was abandoned before they started filming or during production, but originally Emily Mortimer was going to be the second killer, which to me really fits. But then I know that they said, like, we've done 2 killers for the last 2 movies. Isn't that a bit redundant? What if we just did 1?
That's what needs to happen.
But Roman is too
logistically.
He teleports everywhere,
Yeah, and knows where people are going to be, and has everything set because he knows exactly where you're going to go in this giant mansion, which has God knows how many rooms, no locked doors because Dewey and Gale are going in every other room too. A huge, as a movie, huge letdown, but as like a story for Sydney, like that's why I watch it. I watch it for her because the rest of it kind of lets me down.
I still get more out of her journey in Scream 2. Mm-hmm. I think because also I'm very aware in 3. This is the most I've enjoyed 3 because the last several times I've watched it, I think she was either filming Party of 5 still, or just didn't want to be there as much, but she had it in, like, she was only available for like 20 days or something. So, which is why so much of the movie is like Dewey Gale, especially like in the first act. And then like Sydney gets to shoot a bunch of scenes over the course of a couple of days in an isolated location, then comes to, and I'm very aware of that in this movie.
Like at this point, you'd think that Trinity would really come together and really work together, and they are separate so much of the time, and you feel it.
But this was the most that I wasn't bothered by that, and really went on her again because I was on her journey in the first 2.
Yeah.
And I like I love continuity bullshit, so I love that she's got her ex-boyfriend's fucking necklace. I love that she has the Troy poster. A little college production Troy on the wall. And again, that's the only thing that I thought someone paid attention to 2. This is where she would be. Like, this was her fear in 2, and now she has manifested it.
I wonder if it was her too. I wonder if it was either Wes or her, because it feels so personal. It doesn't feel like whoever wrote this script would have known to include that in the script. If they did, I'll give it to them. But I want to watch the commentary actually and find out see if anybody mentions it, because it feels so personal. It feels like an actory thing or a directory thing. It feels like one of them might have made that call. And because she's not wearing it in all the preceding scenes, she's wearing it like when she arms herself to go back out into the world, and I love that.
And when she gets to LA, first of all, again, I love the fact that that's like what her job is. Like, that's the route she took. Great. And I love the idea of isolating yourself, and for not only for yourself but for others. And then, even though it's cheesy, I'm fine with the language of the movie, with her opening the gate at the end and the music swells. And I do like the last beat with hey, we're gonna watch a movie. Too. Although I remember being terrified because this is so stupid, but hopefully you're with me on this. When fucking Patrick Dempsey goes, hey, Sydney, you ready? We're going to watch a movie. She's like, what kind? He's like, you're going to have to find out. I'm like,
I didn't get that.
Why are you so scary in this scene? I literally thought the movie was going to keep going and she was going to get murdered. Like, why is he delivering it so strangely?
I have to watch that again. I didn't get that at all.
I have to find out. So... The first time I literally am like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And then she looks at the door, and I couldn't even enjoy it the first time because I was too terrified that Patrick Dempsey was going to fucking murder everyone in the room.
Well, she's got Gail and Dewey there. They got,
Yeah, I know. It's
she's
just
solid. She's got her
um,
dog too. Her dog
no,
will attack the shit out of him.
but
And
the
he's
imagery.
got an arm, like a lame arm. So yeah.
I'm not saying he would, but just I thought this. Yeah, things are going to continue. Anyway, I love the
Yeah.
imagery of the door stays open and she's okay with it. I wish
Yeah, the sun
movie.
tea.
I
Yeah.
wish the movie had earned enough for me to feel something about that instead of just going, "Oh, I like that."
Can I tell you my favorite line from the movie?
Yeah, and then I'll say more bad things about this. Go ahead.
Awesome. Because this will be like the last thing I have to say about it. Because I laugh out loud when I see this. I don't think you're supposed to, but it gives me joy. This is my favorite line in the whole movie. Oh, it's hard being friends with you, Sydney. When you're friends with Sydney, you die. I laugh my ass off at the line. I even love, I said it one time in jest to my sister's bestie, Jackie, Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, oh, it's hard being friends with you, Jackie. When you're friends with Jackie, you die. And she just started mock weeping right in front of, like how you do when someone doesn't hurt your feelings, but you're like, that's really mean. Like, it brings out the devil in me, and it kind of, like what I would love to hear from a killer in this movie. I wish there had been a little bit more of that, because it's this wicked humor. But yeah, so it's my favorite line out of the whole movie. That's it.
Yeah, most of the Ghostface stuff is, again, like I already mentioned, the opening scene was just like, it's a simple game, Cotton. Now you lose. I'm like, who genius wrote this? Speaking of, I can't remember, Patrick Dempsey.
Yeah.
I generally I like him. I liked him in the 80s, and I liked Grey's Anatomy. But this is before Grey's Anatomy. And I was like, oh, Patrick, because remember Patrick Dempsey was a thing in the 80s. And then he sort of showed up in this, and you're like, oh, hey, Patrick Dempsey's back? And then Grey's Anatomy made him like a star. But like, there's this period in the 90s where like he wasn't a thing, So even though I generally kind of like him in stuff, when he and Sid are in the office together, and he starts talking about like how haunted, and I'm like, are you? Because I'm not getting that from you at all. And he keeps talking all these lines, and I'm like, oh, really? Thank you for telling me, because I'm not getting any of this from you. So much so that when she leaves the room and she goes, what's your favorite scary movie? And he goes,
yeah. My life. Creepy.
One.
That's creepy.
No, terrible reading.
Yeah.
Two, I get on paper how it'd been cool if it had been performed by someone who was haunted and like in it, but like, and then apparently I think I found out that he got cast like 4 days before he had to start filming. So like, I kind of I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's maybe why there isn't like a fully formed character here, because you didn't really have any time to prep. I don't know. But one thing that pisses me off about his character, and has nothing to do with his performance, what pisses me off is that he's considered kind of a red herring. He likes movies, right?
Right.
But there's some kind of connection with Sydney. But then he leaves. She's alone, and she finds a file. File.
He's obsessed with her.
Full of clippings about her life, and from
stills
like,
from the first two movies. Yeah.
But when she was in high school, newspaper clippings with highlights, and you're like, what the fuck is this about? And then when we get to the producer's house and the whole finale, and then he shows up and he's like a red herring with a gun, but then he's like, all right, look, Sydney, like, I'm here for you, blah, blah, blah. He's got that evil look, and then he drops it, whatever. He just, like, that doesn't, like, you can't introduce that and then ignore it. I thought it was going to come into play and we would explain it, because that's too heavy of a red herring. Like, you're a fucking stalker. But come over to my house, we'll have popcorn, because you were kind of nice. And I just cut it out completely, or I just, because then at that point, I'm like, I hope they had a conversation. I hope Sydney had a conversation about the file, because Creeper McCreeperton, way more creepier than my life. I am.
And she says, "Me too," and I'm like, "No, it isn't." That's so not something Sydney would say. It's like, in what world is your life your favorite horror, your favorite scary movie? Like,
I think the intent was it's a horror movie.
yeah, I guess, but I
It
don't know.
wouldn't be
It's
your
something
favorite,
again,
but
something about the way it was phrased. Just
yeah.
like, yeah, I got a problem with that.
One little thing that actually, the thing that I couldn't separate from all this, when Scream 2 came out, we were aware that Courtney Cox and David Arquette were dating.
Yeah.
So that kind of informed, like there's too much in the press to not think about it while you're watching their scenes, like when they kind of kiss or anything. And because in Scream 2, they show one little kiss and she's like a liar and a flirt in Scream 1. Scream 2 to me isn't them coming back together. It's when they truly come together. Because Scream 1 is just I don't like when sequels do this, and this movie does do this, where characters will get together and then we fabricate a reason why they're not together in the next one so they can come together again. And it's just over and over again. And I didn't appreciate that in Scream 3, like after the events of Scream 2, like she jumps into the ambulance with him. And then this movie opens and they don't like each other again. I'm like, oh, what the fuck now? Jesus. Because he's already bitter at her when we start Scream 2.
Yeah.
And now he's bitter at her again. And they explain, like, well, they tried to make it work for a year and she didn't like living in Woodsboro and blah, blah, blah. But now here we are again doing the same shit again. We're like, oh, we were broken up and we come together. Only this time I don't buy it. I bought it when I first saw it, though. And the reason I bought it when I first saw it is because by the time Scream 3 was filming, they were married.
Yeah.
So like I'm actually on board because of what I know. When he proposes to her, I'm like, oh, it's like in real life because I think of you as a couple and now you're a couple and I'm bringing a couple baggage to this movie. But 20 years later, I watch what they're going through and there isn't anything bonding. It's just more trauma that's putting them in traumatic situations together. So when he proposes to her at the end, I'm like, wait, what? Why? What?
Yeah.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all.
She also should have sued.
Unless they're both deluded by trauma. You know?
Like, you know what? Kind of like coming together at the end of Jurassic World with like Owen and Claire, where they're just kind of like, well, I guess we better stick together.
And then in the beginning of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, like
they're broken.
Same shit. Fuck.
Wow.
And then
she should have sued whoever gave her those bangs too. I don't care if it was a wig or her real hair. I don't know which. I think it's a wig though, because I don't remember her hair ever looking anything even adjacent to that on Friends, and she was still doing Friends at the time. So it's like, who, like, why? Whose idea was it? I hate it.
Those bangs are famously bad. People still joke about them now. There are memes about like, no matter how bad your life is, like at least you don't have like Courtney Cox's bangs in Scream 3. Like, but what's fun is that isn't a case of like we look at those bangs now and go, woof. I remember watching that 2000 going, woof. Like those were bad then.
Yeah.
And
that will never look good ever. It never has and it never will. I don't understand the motive. Because even when it's down, like when it's up, it's particularly awkward. But even when it's down, I'm like, what are you? Is it just so we don't confuse the two Gales while they're running around?
You could have given her any other hairstyle. It's fine. Just don't give her that exact hairstyle that the other Gale actress. But I will say Courtney Cox, once again, I buy all her intentions.
Yeah.
100%. Like she's great. She's always great. I'm a big fan in general. So but I'm not just an easy mark. Like she really does what she's asked of for this flick. I am not with you completely on Scott Foley and the ending.
Okay.
First of all, I'd never watched Felicity.
Yeah.
When Scream 1 happened, I didn't know who Skeet Ulrich was, but he left a mark in his scenes.
Okay.
I didn't know who Timothy Olyphant was when I saw Scream 2, but he left a mark in his scenes, both as a performer and also the amount of screen time he had. Roman I swear to God, only has like 2 or 3 scenes,
Mm.
and they're like a of scenes. The little my thing up, like, oh, my movie, and then the statue, and then he has the scene in the producer's office, and I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, there's nothing particularly, no offense to him, but like, there's nothing dynamic about his character. Like, I can describe to you Billy, I can describe you Stu, I
Mm-hmm.
can describe to you who Mickey was.
Mm-hmm.
Roman's a guy.
Yeah.
He's
Oh, and it's your birthday. Like, oh, that's random. Like,
yeah, we're having a birthday party, and I'm drunk at this house.
yeah.
So when that, and it's not knowing Felicity and not having leaving Mark, I remember when he fucking took that mask off, and I'm like, huh?
No, me too.
Him? Who? What? The guy, I don't even remember his name. Who? Oh, it was so disappointing. And then I'm of two minds, and it's frustrating because I rewatched the movie again, and it really solidified it. That whole scene,
Mm-hmm.
when he first takes up the mask and starts talking, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm with you. I believe you. It's a little actory, but like, I feel like you're performing, and you are a director, and then about halfway through the scene, he starts the second half where he's like yelly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what happened? What happened? This is false. This is performance. I am not at all engaged with what you're saying. And I'm very confused because about 2 minutes ago I was. And there is very clearly within it like a line in the sand of like, I'm not, that second half, especially when he's all yelly and shit. I'm not fucking with him, and it bums me out, man. Because this big dramatic climax, I'm not on board. And yeah, but I'm with you completely. I like the fuck you fight. I love. That's the other thing. This, I wish the movie had been good enough so that this felt earned, and nothing leading up to that. It's a great idea in search of a better movie to support everything that came before it, so that I felt something more than just, it's really good. It's a good idea. But that's all it is to me. Is like, and she's performing well, he's performing it well, but the movie needs to be good before we get to that moment. And then also just I don't like the whole reveal of everything. Although I will say one nice thing about this movie before I go into my last thing that I don't like. I do like the fact that it does bring something new that the other two movies didn't do. It's a mystery. The first two, we're still wondering who is the killer. Fine. That just comes with the territory. But this one also brings up why are they leaving photos? And let's investigate. There's a picture of the building in the background. Like, we get to investigate stuff. There is a mystery to be solved, and that is different. So props to Scream 3 for that. What?
Can I tank that down for you, though?
Oh, no. It's like the only one.
No, I mean, that in and of itself, I agree with you. The problem is it's also coupled with another kind of, I don't know about premise, but another idea that is introduced and then is immediately abandoned as soon as it is introduced, when they find out that people are dying in the order that they die in the script.
Yes.
Once they point it out, it is out of there. Nobody dies in the order they die in the script.
Well,
also, they don't know what copy of the script they have.
They write it off.
But then people who aren't even in the movie just start dying. Like, the next person to die after that, I think, is Patrick Warburton.
Yeah, I find it a little more, I don't want to say egregious, but like, I can justify it in the second one to a certain degree. I have a harder time justifying that. But yes, in 2 and 3, that totally happens. But what I don't believe, when you do something where you are effectively retconning or adding stuff to the first movie, it has to fit. And there's nothing in Billy's performance that I feel is fueled by a guy who gave him a videotape of his mom. Like, that's too much of a bigger piece. That's too much of a third party involved. it's one thing for Roman to grow up alone. I track down my mom.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "Oh, well, that person's dead. Oh, I'm going to take that. I'm going to make her dead." But then, yeah, I videotaped Billy's mom or Billy's dad meeting up with your mom. Didn't like that. Didn't like that one bit. Yeah, but that's a major thing to commit to stalking a woman and then literally videotaping and then sending the tapes to her son.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't just put him on. I don't know. That's a weird thing to claim that you put Billy on the path and it was really you this whole time. And there's nothing about Scream that feels informed by the acts of Roman. I do not fucking buy it.
No, in
So
a way,
to me, that fails.
It's like how you don't echo something. In a way, I feel like they're almost trying to kind of echo something in both of the previous movies, there was a definite alpha beta relationship. Like Billy's obviously the alpha in one, and his mom is obviously the alpha in two. I feel like maybe they were trying to make Roman Billy's alpha or something. But I mean, and again, it's how you do it poorly. Like, don't anybody write anything that way. But also, and also to try and kind of like get them locked in, because it again in a bad way. But at the same time, at this point in the movie, I'm so not bothered, because it's literally like looking to keep my head above water, and because I connect with what's happening emotionally between them, it's like I can just kind of ride that wave. I won't justify the way it's crafted or the way it plays out in the trilogy, because here it's a trilogy.
The echo.
Oh, that's another thing I love, though. I love the casting of Heather Matarazzo as Jamie's, because there's that one line. This is one line that I thought kind of got nailed in the writing, where it's just kind of like, it's just kind of like, Randy has a sister, and just like, yeah, can't you tell? I'm like, yeah, I can. she lives in the same house as Randy. I can tell. She did.
Also, it is. It's not just. He is a bright spot of Scream 1 and 2. So he was for about 5 minutes, like a little beacon. I remember going like, we have Gale and Dewey, but I'm like, oh, it feels like Scream for a little bit, thank goodness.
Exactly, and it's a total reach, but I'm like, I don't care, Randy. We got him back somehow.
In case I get killed, I made a tape, but you know what?
Yeah.
What's on that tape?
I asked my sister to hold on to it, and if Sydney survives, and I didn't, but then a killer goes after her again, bring her this tape.
Right.
Like, or I wrote a note.
And you, a not industry, just normal civilian, get onto the studio lot and then just get into the trailer and just wait. Whatever. Fuck it.
Yeah.
It turns out but what we get is so good that I'm fine with it. I don't care. I will fucking wave that off.
It's a little inner tube that I'm just like grabbing onto, and I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, I can hang on to this for a while before the shark's coming, sniffing again.
I have a question. I read something 2 different ways, and I want to know what you think of one of these 2 readings. There's a part, there's a line in the movie that I am not fond of. We set up that the producer back in the day had parties at his house where women would come over, and that's how you got the part.
Yeah.
And things were done to these women, sexy things.
Not sexy.
I know, but I'm just being silly here. Not sexy things, in truth.
Yes.
Roman says, like, this is why you should be upset at this producer, because it all started here.
Lance Henriksen, who's totally wasted. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. What these men did to her made her who she is. And he goes, and I think he goes so far as to say, like, what happened to her made her a slut.
Yeah.
And I go, okay. So you go to a thing and a bunch of dudes rail you. And all of a sudden, like, now I've got an appetite for dick. It's problematic. But I'm not saying the movie's saying that, because there is, but here's what I'm wondering. Is that line written genuinely from a place that like Aaron Kruger comes from, where he's like, well, yeah, she got fucked by a bunch of dudes. That's what made her a slut. That's what made her bang all these dudes in Woodsboro. Because that's not great.
No.
Or is that the way Roman thinks? Like, well, yeah, you got to blame him because when girls get raped by a bunch of dudes, that's what makes them sluts then. You know, it's the case of like, you know, when Banky says something homophobic, that's not the voice of Kevin Smith, that's the voice of Banky. But when I listen to that line, like, what happened here is what made her a slut. I'm like, yeah, getting raped doesn't make you a slut. So like, I can't tell. Is that supposed to be Roman or is that just bad fucking writing?
I actually think it's one of those and something else, just from my perspective, my humble perspective, because I'm not right.
Because that line pulls me out. That's the only way I stay on it. Because I'm like, whoa,
okay,
I'm yanked out.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I stay hooked in, and particularly with this screening, I did. Number one, because I do think it's partially the way Roman thinks, which is a relief, because Roman's fictitious and a madman. So, okay, I'm fine with that. I think the other part of it is there's this is again something that hooks me in, like this odd attempt to convince Sydney that what's being done and what's been done up until this point is right. And I think there's almost a part of him that would like for her to join him.
Right.
And that what he's trying to do is he doesn't have empathy either, but he just knows, like, if I just find a way to say, this is the guy who started all this. This is the guy who took away my mother and your mother. Let's kill this fucker. Let's get rid of him. And I think if she would have said okay, even if she would have just pretended, but I think if she would have like been in any way kind of interested in it, I think he would have held off, and I think they would have had.
That would have been a different, yeah.
So yeah,
I would think they would have had some sadistic for a second. My only thing with that is like, Sydney would not fucking go for that, and clearly she doesn't. So it was a fool's attempt on his part.
Yeah. He also doesn't know Sydney. I mean, I think she's so not playing into the victim role that it's almost like he's confronted. That's another thing that I like about the performance is I feel like he's confronted with so much. He's confronted with this figure of rivalry, this figure that has everything that should have been his. He's confronted with a potential comrade. He doesn't quite know, like maybe enough stuff has happened to her that she's fucked up enough that she might be hungry for some revenge. Only one way to find that out. And you know what? I'll give her, I'll give her all the ammunition she needs. I'll tell her the story. I'll tell her in ways that nobody should ever hear their parents be spoken about, regardless of what their parents did or what happened to them. Just to try and like turn the burner up underneath her. That works for me. But given the roster that you gave me of Aaron Kruger's other work, particularly the Transformers and the depiction of women in those movies, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know, but that I only know what I believe and what feels. I'd prefer to think the way I've been thinking until I get more evidence to just be kind of like, I need to see Aaron Kruger in an interview, turn me off, and then have me go like, oh, you're a piece of trash. That would be fine. Then I'd be like, okay, then I'll come back to you and I'll tell you, but I haven't seen that clip yet. There you
go. I guess before we go on to Scream 4, the last thing I'll say about this is I have like a love-hate relationship with the fact that it takes place in Hollywood and is about the sets and the actors. Only because, and here's why I love it and hate it. Scream 1 took place with normal-ass people going to high school. You can kind of relate. Scream 2 took place in a college with a bunch of normal-ass people. Kind of relate. There's some sorority sisters that are a little colorful, but for the most part, Scream 3, besides having very cartoony performances by some people, that's not an experience a lot of us can relate to. I mean, even as someone who has attempted to, I've been on some backlots. I've tried to be an actor. Like even though this is within our wheelhouse to a certain degree, there's something about it. I go, wait, we're going there. But I also love it. The flip side of that is after people studying VHS to go into like film students and having film class, and if all these movies are rooted in movie tropes and intentions and being meta, I feel like the next logical step is to get to, well, if we've set up the fact that we have stab movies, we're going to take the next step into being about movies. So in a weird way, I feel like it was kind of inevitable. I don't think they did enough with it, but I appreciate the stab they made.
I understand the progression. It does feel like a natural direction to go into. And I think here and there, some little things, like, I mean, again, the idea of twin Gale Weathers going after something, it's a next level kind of meta thing. And I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, is it the movie I want? Probably not, but it's the movie I have, and it's all I have. Whenever Sydney's not on screen, it's the only other thing that I really have.
And
but yeah.
One other little thing, I just, even back when I first saw it and didn't like it, there's still one little thing that I appreciate, if this counts. Scream 1 teen slasher movie, specifically teen. Scream 2, the college campus slasher movie. Scream 3, well, not the entire, but the third act is a very long third act, is the big mansion, the party, people getting picked off, secret passages and shit. Like, that is a thing. The people getting killed at the house with the mystery and the passage, like, that is a trope. So I at least appreciate that by the third act, we did a thing.
Yeah.
And then
it's got like the exoskeleton of conceivably like a good movie. I would love to hear the original pitch and maybe a secondary pitch for like Kevin Williams' original script and then Wes Craven's attempt at it. I would love to have more insight to those. This is, it just kind of doesn't fill in. I mean, I even thought something as simple as when Parker's character, I can't even remember her name, is behind the glass and she's banging on it. And I was like, I never drew the parallel before, and maybe it's not intentional, but I thought like, oh my God, the second movie is like an example of how you do somebody on the other side of either a window or a mirror, and they don't know that the person's behind them, and then they find out. That's how you do it, or that's one way to do it really successfully. It's an effective way. The third movie is a way to do it. I mean, I'm not scared for her. The fact that they can kind of hear her but don't has me questioning, well, wait, so what's the exact structure of this? Like, but then she's been banging on it. There's stuff right next to her. She could have thrown something through the window and hopped through. I'm not scared enough of the killer at this point. Because other things, like Gale took his pulse earlier, Roman's pulse, when he was laying in the coffin and behaved like he was dead. And
what the shit is that about? How did he make his pulse not go?
Maybe he studies yogi and he's an advanced. He doesn't seem like a meditator, but you're supposed to be able to slow your pulse to like what, one every 60 seconds or something. Maybe that's what he did. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But I mean, a lot of things. I mean, there are so many things in this movie. We could literally do a commentary for Scream 3.
Yeah.
Where we just do the pluses and minuses, and the minuses do outweigh the pluses for me, but I still watch it.
On little trivia.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned wanting to know, Matthew Lillard talked about a few years ago, he was quoted some article somewhere that he was supposed to be the killer in Kevin Williamson's Scream 3. That somehow he survived the events of Scream, which I already don't like.
No, because the TV drops on your head.
the glass.
Multiple
first of
stab
all,
wounds.
the guts of it going in your face, the glass around your face and neck, and then it's still plugged in, so you hear electrical charge. Yeah, no.
And multiple stab wounds before that. You're already bleeding out. That's like your last little before you. Yeah.
I've also read that that not only was he he wasn't necessarily the killer. I heard one that he was the killer, read, and then two that his character was in prison, and from prison and like from the phone calls, he was the mastermind behind the killers. But I still go, wait, you're in prison? But like, now I'm not saying it would need to be brought up in 2, but like nowhere would I have guessed that like you survived the events of 2 and then like went to trial.
Yeah.
And like we know Sidney testified against Cotton, but like that's a whole nother ball of wax that like that Stu. That Stu was in prison, but he was masterminding and controlling or telling people, but it was high school students. It was going to be a high school movie again. And they were going to be like kids killing kids. But again, they were going to go into production on 99. And you know what happened around May of 99 was fucking Columbine. So like that whole script went like, oh, we're not fucking doing kids killing kids.
I'm kind of glad it. Okay, so I'm kind of glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, he mentioned that somewhere a few years ago, and I'm glad.
That's interesting that you bring that up, because I was watching these these updates on 5 Cream. That's how they're writing it, 5 with cream for Scream 5, and just on the internet, not in any promotional materials yet, but people are already like 5 Cream.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of Fan 4 Stick, so.
Yeah, right. We're going to talk about Scriptorum right after this.
I'm okay with
yeah, but for 5 Cream, people are talking about what it might be, because Matthew Lillard has already been interviewed, of course, hearing about all this casting and stuff, and he said he's really, really bummed that he can't be a part of it because he would love to be a part of it. So there's been all this speculation, like, well, what if there's like, I heard it on the Zach Cherry channel and a few other things, like people talking about like, what if there's a reveal, like a button, Marvel style, at the end of 5 Cream, where he's like in a cell, he somehow survived one, but he's been in like isolation this entire time, and they set him up to come back for, I don't know how they'll fix Screen 6, maybe Scree 6'em.
You just, no, don't say that, because there's a reason why it works for Scream 4 and only for Scream 4. So
okay, but oh no, yeah, no, I can't wait to talk about that with you. But no, so anyway, but I mean, so they were the kind of people laying the ground, kind of like, where are they getting this? Like, I mean, I if they did it, I'd go see the movie, but I'd go with a grain of salt, going like, this wouldn't really happen. Like, but I don't mind seeing Stu in a movie again. Like, so that would be the only reason.
I don't want a Scream 5 where Stu comes back, but if you're gonna do it,
yeah,
and let's say Stu is the killer. Once it's revealed to be Stu of this current age, I need there to be a flashback where they Marvel that shit, and we connect the dots to justify why he's in this. And you have.
I was in a coma for whatever. Then I was in solitary confinement.
But does that all sound terrible?
Yes, it does.
Just don't do it.
But again, with a Matthew Lillard like narration over it, I don't know. Like, again, I'm not rooting for it, but if we got it, there are some
as long as he's
you
spitting
do.
While he's explaining. Right. And like whatever his fingers are, it's got to be a scream, baby.
Yeah, I want to see veins. I want to see all the veins and red in the face. Anyway, okay, so
Scream 4.